It's possible that we could have read one story in the Bible so many times, yet miss the significance of a one seemingly insignificant word, a word which has the potential in it to completely revolutionize our life, to give us a new thinking, a new direction in life. And something similar happened to me this weekend. Listen to the story coming up. We had a conference in our church this weekend, and we had Pastor Francesco visiting us from Rome, and he was sharing about his mission and his work in Italy, and God is using him mightily, and he's opening a Bible school there. He's planting so many churches there, and God has given him a lot of success on social media, and he's on the national TV. And he was sharing how he was also from a business background and how God called him, and he is able to use him mightily for his kingdom. And as Pastor Francesco was speaking, it was as though God is speaking to me in my life. And Pastor Francesco was sharing from a very familiar passage where Moses meets God at the burning bush, a passage we might have read so many times, yet there are a few words that we might have just skipped and missed on a great blessing which I was a part of this weekend as Pastor Francesco shed light on these words. Before we can look into the seemingly insignificant word that had such an impact on my life and a blessing this weekend and could have a similar blessing on your life and similar impact on your life, let's look at the context of Moses meeting God at the burning bush. And the context is found in Exodus chapter 3 and verse 1, and where we see that Moses is taking care of the flock of Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And in verse 2, he takes the flock and he goes to the desert and unto the Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, where an angel of the Lord meets Moses in the form of fire in a burning bush. You see, God sometimes meets us in different ways, and we see over here that God meets Moses in the form of fire. Now, this fire is a strange fire because you see, unlike this match which is burning away and pretty soon it's going to burn off and maybe burn my fingers as well, but before that happens, fortunately it has died off. You see, but that fire was not dying off. In the desert, a dry bush not burning off, it was a strange sight. It was a strange sign. And you see, sometimes similar strange signs and strange things happen to us in our lives as well. But the problem is that we do not notice these signs. We ignore these signs. You see, and how is it that we would be able not to ignore these signs? We will learn from Moses' story. And the seemingly insignificant words are found in verse 3. First, I'm going to read the whole verse, and then we are going to look at these seemingly insignificant words. And the verse goes like this: Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. So you see, the verse is that Moses said, I'm going to turn aside and see why the bush is not burning. And the words are, now turn aside. Now turn aside. And as Pastor Francesco was speaking, he was saying, this is not merely just a physical turning aside. This is not just merely, I'm looking this way now and I'm going to look the other way. This is not just a merely physical turning aside, but it is a turning aside of a different sort. What sort of turning aside is it? And what is Moses turning aside from? Moses is turning aside from the flocks that he's been tending to. You see, the flocks, what do they represent? The flocks represent Moses' livelihood. This is how he provided for his family. And you see, the flocks in our life What are the flocks in our life? Our business, our career, our work, our household, whatever we are doing, whatever our normal life routine is, that is our flocks. And that is could be the reason why we miss out on the signs of God when God is speaking to us. It might not be the flame, it might not be the burning bush, but there might be some strange, like a strange sight that happened in the life of Moses. There could be, God could be speaking to us through different circumstances, through different scenarios. And for me, it was this conference in this weekend, where as Pastor Francesco was speaking, he was a businessman as well, and he was a successful businessman and making money, and God called him to do something else, and he was able to achieve so much more. And you see, Moses is living a life of a herdsman. He's taking care of the flock, but God has so much more in store for him. God is going to give him something great to do, an amazing, a big task, a task which is much more bigger than Moses' life. And what is the task? The task that God is going to give him is to take the Israelites out of Egypt, out of slavery, and into the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey. Such a big task, such a seemingly impossible task, a task that cannot be achieved. And why can't that task be achieved? The task cannot be achieved because, you see, Egypt is the superpower of that time, the greatest, the biggest kingdom, and the Pharaoh is the biggest king, and he, a single man, is going to face the greatest army of that time and the greatest king of that time, and take the slaves who have been oppressed and who are the backbone of the greatness of Egypt, and he's going to take them out. And of course, Moses had his hesitation. Of course, Moses had his resistance. He had his questions. Me, I'm going to face Pharaoh and I'm going to take the Israelites out. How is that possible? And God said, don't worry, I'm going to be with you. And he said, he also had other questions. I'm going to go to the Israelites and say what? Which God sent me? God told him, don't worry, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. You go, tell him, I am has sent you. So God gave him answers. You see, but before God could give him that task, Moses had spiritually, emotionally, mentally decided to turn aside. And how do we know that? We can read that in verse 4. It says, so when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look. You see, the verse says, when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. You see, God wants to speak to Moses and God wants to speak to you. But we don't have the time to look aside, to turn aside. Because we are so busy with our work. And this is my case and my situation as well. I'm so busy. As I said, I'm a chef restaurateur with my business. You see, while I was sitting in the conference over there, in one of our restaurants, there was no chef that day and I was supposed to be the chef. And usually I'm praying, God, please let there be no guest for the first half hour at least. And lo and behold, my phone is ringing in the middle of the sermon. And I'm getting messages, sir, please come, there are guests sitting in the restaurant, nobody to serve them. And I'm holding my head and saying to my brother who's sitting next to me, my staff is messaging me, I have to leave. And it was a painful thing for me. So I go to the restaurant that evening and the restaurant is full and there's a lot of guests coming. And I'm serving them and I'm serving them and I'm thinking that God is speaking to me. Alan, you're taking care of your business, you're taking care of your flock. But I have given you a greater task, a task bigger than your life, to take care of my flock. to take care of my people, to further my kingdom. So from that time onwards, you see, God had been speaking to me for years and years to make videos, and I've been ignoring that. But this sign of Pastor Francesco coming this weekend was my burning bush. And it could be that God has been calling you to do certain things. And I'm not saying leave your business. I'm not saying leave your work. All I'm saying is that God could be calling you to do tasks and works which are so much bigger than what you are doing at the moment. So you see what I do? I start from then and there to arrange staff. And unfortunately, the kind of restaurant we have to get specialized staff from abroad. And the process of making the work permit is quite long. It takes about 1 year to get the work permits and the visas and everything for the people to come. So do pray for me, because I have decided I'm going to leave my flock in the hands of other people to handle the business, so I can handle the business of God and achieve greatness through that. You see, God called Moses to call out the Israelites, and in the process, Moses did so many great miracles, like parting of the Red Sea, calling manna from heaven, water from the rock in the desert, and writing the first 5 books of Torah. God called him to do so many great things, and God has called you to do so many great things and achieve greatness in life, and to do so many miracles as well. But if our tending of our own flocks is eating up all our time and energy and influence and money and everything, and we have never time to look aside, we will never achieve greatness, achieve real potential that God has called us to achieve. So you see, God is speaking to us through signs. Let's pay attention. And this is my 3rd video, and I'm starting on this journey, and I'm inviting you to come along with me in this journey to see where God takes us. And in my first video, I talk about, you can click it over here on the left side, and you can see where I talk about God coming along us and speaking to us and giving us a new direction. And clicking over here on the right hand side, you can see a series on the life of Prophet Elijah. I believe it's going to be a great blessing for you. God bless you. I will see you in the next video.